Hey everyone, thanks for jumping in and joining this webinar. My name is Wayne Congar. I'm the CEO of HUTS. And what we're going to do today is go over what we're terming development opportunities at HUTS and a specific one on Pucky Huddle Road in Bethel, New York. What I want to go through here is really three pieces. The first is what are our development opportunities? How do we think of them? How do you find them on our site? How do you track along to this one for Pucky Huddle Road and any others? I want to go through the specific opportunity that we see for Pucky Huddle Road and the way that we've envisioned designing for this property. And then last, open it up for any questions. And for anyone who wasn't able to make it today, we're recording this and we'll be sure to post it online. So let's start by just looking at what are development opportunities for us. And I think the first thing to understand is that you can find them, all the ones that we're starting to build and starting to envision on our website. So here I am on huts.com. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll find a place in our footer called developments, where we're including all of our current development opportunities. And so let me go into one of these, and you'll see they're organized um, by cost and what we think that the capital expenditures will be to be able to realize the vision that we've laid out for these properties. And so we've got four categories: below 300,000, 300,000 to 600, 600 to 900, and 900 to 1.2 million. And each of these are not only organized by price, but also who do we think it's for? What's the use case? Is this a place where it's meant to be sort of a small getaway? Is this a place where it's a more ambitious project where maybe it's kind of like a compound or sort of a multi-generational destination? And we've both envisioned what the steps would be for land acquisition and construction, but also looked at potential revenue in the case that that is part of your ambition for creating this new house. Are you looking to offset your carrying costs and your expenses with some amount of rental? And so at any time, or if you're interested in our development opportunities, please come to huts.com/opportunities, and see the kind of latest and greatest that we're posting here. And in each case, we've done a lot of work evaluating the parcel and a lot of work thinking about what a great land use might be that's both sustainable, affordable, and appropriate for the parcel and area where the parcel is. And so let's go to Pucky Huddle Road, and you can see it's under the below $300,000 range. And Pucky Huddle Road, as you can see, it's in the town of Bethel, about 2 hours from New York. And if you're not familiar with Bethel, it's where the music venue Bethel Woods was. It's where Woodstock was. It's within throwing distance of Callicoon, of Narrowsburg, not too far from Livingston Manor, and a number of really great small towns in the Sullivan County area in the Western Catskills. And about, like it says, around 2 hours from the city, so very accessible. And so all of the lots that we evaluate for our development opportunities start from our land listings. And so if you're currently on the hunt for land, I always recommend starting at land.nyc, which is our curated land listing service. And you can see we have here Pucky Huddle Road. And before even starting to think about how we would the kind of the full development opportunity and some of the sequences that would go into developing the place, we've identified this as a lot that we think is a really excellent place. It's reasonably priced. It has really fantastic features, like a number of streams running through it, has a mix of forest and meadow. It's adjacent to really excellent regional amenities. And anytime you go onto land.nyc, you'll see lots of things, not just about the parcel, but what makes the place special. What are the places to shop? What are the outdoor activities? Where are the places to eat nearby? And guidance on what would be required to develop the place as far as land improvements, construction requirements, land use limitations, and things that might restrict your development approach for the parcel, and the realtor's name if you choose to buy the parcel. And so this is the starting point for this development opportunity and all others, which is finding really excellent land parcels on land.nyc. So if you're not signed up already, I encourage you to do that if you're interested. So let's come back to development opportunities and dive into Pucky Huddle Road a little bit more closely. And so you see a couple of key stats here around this opportunity. The number of acres, it's 5.7 acre parcel. We are imagining building our cottage ADU on the parcel. The process here would include entitlement and improving the lot. And then you can see some of our estimated pricing, that the cost of acquisition plus construction on this lot is going to be around $230,000. That we imagine that going through this exercise of land improvement and construction is going to produce around 68, almost $70,000 of stored equity of value at the completion of the project, and that conservatively, if rental is part of your program, that you would be able to rent this place for around $5,500 a month. So let's jump into the development opportunity itself, and we can look at some of the details here. And so, we kind of throw these together relatively quick and dirty, where we're bringing together the lot that we've identified, the research and understanding that we have on the parcel, along with what from our standards catalog, whether it's ADUs or full home types, we would imagine placing on this parcel. And so we kind of create a quick way to understand what the key amenity is the parcel is. In this case, it's this really excellent creek that's running through it, and the ADU that we imagine designing and permitting and building on the parcel. And so we also kind of think about, who is this for? I think that one of the hard things about looking at to be built projects or looking at raw land is it's hard to see yourself in the project. And so while this could be really for anyone, we really imagine that it's an excellent fit for, say, like a couple that maybe lives in the city or lives in a more urban area. They're looking for a low cost, maybe cash financed way to get a place upstate that can be executed relatively quickly, relatively inexpensively, and has really high ROI on the rental side. So looking at the location here, and again, I'm going directly through our site. This is exactly what you would see when you go to the Pucky Huddle Road development opportunities. We're placing identifying where this lot is in Western Sullivan County, kind of right in the middle on the kind of north-south line of the county. And if we go here, I'll actually take a look on Google Earth. Here's our lot right near Mallory Pond. Zoom out a little bit, we have Lake Superior State Park. Zoom out a little bit further, we're starting to see some towns come into view: Bethel, Cochecton, Narrowsburg, Callicoon, Monticello, and kind of a main corridor here. And then zooming out, you can see Livingston Manor, Roscoe. A little further south, you see Eldred, and down towards 84 and Port Jervis. Really, really accessible along 17 to get here, and next to some really fantastic four-season amenities. Coming back, as it describes, the lot spans about almost 6 acres, includes this kind of mix of biomes where there's a marshy area, there's a creek, there's forested land, there's cleared land. It's mostly flat and quite buildable. And so that's one of the reasons we see it as sort of an easier development opportunity. You're not fighting uphill as much with the parcel. And we imagine building it with our cottage ADU, which, if you're not familiar with our ADU catalog, our cottage ADU is a 300 square foot structure with a 10 by 20 footprint and a 10 by 10 loft space above. It features 2 dedicated sleeping areas and can be built on piers, be built on slab on grade foundation, can operate completely off grid, and is a relatively low cost structure that isn't exactly a tiny house, because it includes all the features that you would need to be able to stay somewhere upwards of a week. You have full bathroom, you have indoor shower, you have a dining space, you have a living space, you have the opportunity for a dedicated office space if you don't want to max out your sleeping areas. And so let me just kind of show us what that cottage ADU is. And again, at any time you can go to our standards on our site, go to ADUs, and explore all the details of our standards, including our cottage ADU. And so here you see an exterior visualization of the space. And I think that this is a really good visual that gives you an understanding of the interior, where we have kitchenette, we have dining living space, we have dedicated wet room with shower, a 10 by 10 bedroom that's pretty well sized underneath of the loft, and then 10 by 10 flexible space above. Either can be used to fit a king bed or be a couple of kind of more of a bunked out space or an office or however you might imagine utilizing it. And here you can see the floor plan where upon entry, you have the main lower floor sleeping area, 10 by 10 living area, wet room with overhead shower, and then loft space above. And so let's go through the steps. We've got the property identified on Pucky Huddle Road, 5.7 acres, variety of natural features. We have the standard that we imagine placing there with our cottage ADU, and we have sort of a user in mind. We've got a concept of how somebody might finance this place, and a concept of how they might use it for rental and offsetting their carrying costs. And so on the acquisition side, here we are looking at the parcel from an aerial view. And what we'll show in these site plans and these site maps is how we're going from a raw lot, forest in the front, a little bit of kind of a pooled pond and creek coming through, into each of the steps of development, starting from acquisition. And so what we're looking at here is what we term a pro forma. This is sort of a simple spreadsheet that gives you an understanding of three pieces of the economics of a development opportunity. What's your cost of acquisition? What's your capital expenditure to go vertical, to construct the property? Sometimes on larger properties, we'll show the maintenance costs, and then what is your potential revenue? And in an ideal world, the way that a development opportunity should work is that your cost of acquisition and your capital expenditure is less than the value that you create on the parcel, and your carrying costs if you're financing the project, could be less than your revenue that you could create conservatively on the rental side. And so let's explore how in this Pucky Huddle Road project that sort of breaks down. We've got an $89,000 lot. There's going to be some amount of work you'll want to do at acquisition for due diligence around getting a perk test. You might need to gut check the survey. And so all in, you're looking at a purchase cost of the land of around $91,000. Then you move into land improvement. And so in this case, what we're proposing on the land improvement is clearing a small area of trees as limited as possible for driveway, for well and septic area, and for the house itself. And so within our land improvement piece, we imagine building a storage shed that would house some of our mechanicals and utility pieces, around 150-foot linear driveway, which on average in this area, we're seeing there's some driveway that's already here, so we're going to have to build around 75 feet. But on average, we see in this area driveways being built for around $7,500 for every 100 linear feet. You're going to have to build a well, septic for a one-bedroom space, small septic, and run power if you're not going off-grid. And so you're going to have around $36,000 in land improvements added on to your $91,000 purchase costs. You now have $127,500 into the project. But something really excellent starts to happen when you start improving lots and going from raw land into an improved lot, is that the cost of those improvements usually have a multiple on them, that for every dollar you put in improving the land, you often get $1.50 to $2 in value on the other side, because you're making the project more shovel ready, and you're converting your lot from raw land to improved land. And so we've started to store some equity in the project. We have $127,000 into the parcel, but the project value is now around $170,000. And so we're creating value as we go through these steps. The next piece is to build your cabin. And what's nice about our ADUs as opposed to larger home developments is that the permitting process is lighter. Any sort of structural or mechanical, electrical, plumbing exercise is sort of lighter. The amount of design exercise that we might go through and modifications is going to be a little bit simpler. And so it's really about kind of choosing the ADU standard and saying, let's assemble it and bring it onto site. And so here you're starting to see that in place where we're imagining on the lot kind of having a parking area with near the kind of utilities shed, but that the experience of going to this parcel is that you walk through the woods a little bit through a somewhat manicured path, getting back towards the pond front, and rather than spending much money on running all kinds of circulation or the driveway back here, we really make it feel like the ADU is completely nestled against the shore of the pond. Separate and distant from the road, far enough from your car, and there's kind of a sense of arrival that you're kind of going back into the forest and coming to this place that's kind of on its own and a little bit isolated back there. And so again, now we're looking at our standard where on average we're seeing the ADU construction, depending on some of your fixture and finish selections, built for around $100,000 or around $300 per square foot on our cottage ADU. And so now we're starting to add up those pieces. Our capital expenditures have been $91,000 for acquisition, $36,000 for improvement, and $100,000 for building the cabin. And we're at 227,500 total. But now we've kind of gone one step further in creating value. We've gone from an improved lot to an entitled one where we've permitted the project and we've also built something on it. And so there's some value creation there that on average you should be looking at every 75 or 80 cents that you spend on building your home structure could be worth about $1 on the backside. That's what good development looks like in most cases. And so you spend around $227,000 and you've created a resulting value of around $296,000. So you're equity positive on the project, kind of right side up on the development. And then the last piece, and this is largely based off of AirDNA data in the region and some competitive analysis of similar scale rentals nearby, is a conservative estimate on what we think this property rents for. Where at an annualized rate of $275 a night, you're going to get a little bit higher on the weekends in the summertime, a little bit lower on the weekdays in the wintertime. But let's imagine you're renting it for on average $275 a night at 20 nights a month. It's a $5,500 a month project that should cash flow pretty significantly and pretty immediately. And I think our ADUs, as much as we see them as really excellent additional spaces, low cost ways to create a property, we've also designed them with kind of high ROI in mind for the rental side. And so this project in Pucky Huddle on Pucky Huddle Road is sort of exemplary of how we imagine that working. And so in the end, you've pursued a project that's put out about $227,500, almost $300,000 in value created. That produced around $66,000 on average per year if you choose to think about this as a rental project. And so coming inside the space, you can see this cottage ADU where we've sort of rendered it more with an eating space and sleeping above, but it's a larger space than you might imagine. It's the use of glass and the use of kind of the vaulted ceiling brings in sort of an airier feeling and makes it feel like you're not kind of stuck in a tiny trailer, but instead one with nature and really, really exposed to the outside. And I think that the siting of this property right against the pond and how we're thinking about it, utilizing the best features of the property, which is the creeks and sort of water features that are running through, are going to make this feel like a really, really special property, excellent for you when you go there and really desirable to renters if you choose to go that way. And so just a disclaimer, I think it's goes without saying, but all of our estimates are based on kind of our experience, prevailing costs in the region, publicly available data on rental rates. But it's our best estimate of how to put together a pro forma for this project and help people understand how would I go from this raw piece of land on Pucky Huddle Road towards this type of sub $300,000 development opportunity. And so This is how all of our development opportunities are laid out with this level of detail. But today I'm here really to answer questions about this one, which we hope there is a enthusiastic buyer out there who's interested in pursuing and kind of going down this journey with us for this project on this lot. And so let me stop there and open it up to questions. Sarah, thank you for your question. Sarah writes, could a larger ADU be built instead? Yeah, absolutely. A larger structure could be built here for sure. The lot allows for it. The zoning allows for it. This is just how we've imagined a really kind of thoughtful, sustainable bit of development on this parcel. While it's a 5.7 acre lot, when you start to lay out where kind of like flood areas are, where marshy areas are, where some protected areas are, that that buildable area gets quite a bit smaller. And so we think that the best land use and the most responsible and sustainable land use for this exact parcel is something a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter on the land than kind of a 1,000 or 1,500 square foot house. And so I could imagine expanding our ADU a bit and getting to something a little bit more livable for kind of the longer term. But I think this lot really works well with a smaller structure. Sarah writes, could you do multiple ADUs and how many? I believe this lot will allow for 2 dwellings. And so you could do 2 ADUs near each other that there'd be some economies there where you'd be able to run the power once and then split it. You'd be able to probably share a well and you'd have to build a larger septic, but they could also share a septic system. Matthew writes, what role do architects and designers play in the process of each project? So HUTS our design studio is involved in all of our projects. And so we bring together both design and development. In this case, there'd be no New York State architect involved, but there would be one of our consulting structural engineers who would stamp and seal your permit documentation that will be required for constructing the project. And then depending on the contractor or build team for the project, we're involved sort of end to end on design development, interior and fixture and finish selections, and helping to coordinate with the build team as the owner's representative on the project and making sure that what's been designed for and imagined is what's actually happening on site. Joe writes, would the due diligence in the lot normally tell you where you can build on the site and whether there are any constraints on driveway location? For sure. And so the biggest piece of due diligence that you want to do on any parcel is a perk test and septic feasibility. And so that's going to tell you where the septic can be, which also then starts to tell you where the house can be relative to the septic. Driveway routing tends to be pretty open. You have offsets from the lot lines on the parcel. You need to stay away from any designated wetlands. You also want to make sure you're somewhere that is going to naturally drain. And so between the combination of a survey, a little bit of kind of topographic review, and a perk test by a land engineer, kind of tells you everything you need to know around where the house can go and where the other utilities and driveway are going to go. Eve Markman writes, does HUTS already own the lots listed on the website? No, some we do, and some we don't. And so in both cases, we try to do the same level of due diligence and understanding how we would utilize the parcel, but some we do own, and others like this one on Pucky Huddle Road. It's a public lot, publicly listed lot that we've identified as just a really great parcel that we think is a really great fit for our design and development approach. Anonymous writes, do you represent the client through the entitlement, subdivision, regulatory processes, surveys? Yeah. And so HUTS is really set up to both be a design studio that develops our standards and works with our clients on design modifications and sort of localization of our standard types to work with the lot, to work with the locality, to work with your budget. But we also operate as your development Sherpa, that we're managing that process from raw land to improved lot to design to documentation, entitlement, and contractor onboarding, and owner's representation throughout construction. And so for folks that aren't land developers out there, and my guess is most people are not, that's why we exist. We're there to kind of take this difficult process of putting together all of the pieces that are required, of taking a raw lot and turning it into a really well executed, well designed, and kind of predictable development project that has your stamp on it. It has your kind of unique quality to it. Jonathan writes, can you say a little bit more about the purpose of the utility shed off the parking lot? Yeah, so Jonathan, I think with our a lot of our projects, particularly if they are if there's no basement or there's no space underneath of the floor in a kind of rat slab or crawl space, we're rather than kind of tucking the mechanicals, hot water heater, electrical panel, I think what else would be here. There's not really going to be even like compressor for your mini split unit. Rather than kind of hiding these things all over inside the nooks and crannies of the building, we like to make a little bit of a kind of power station, a single location where the house is managed from. And so on larger houses, you have a place to put that. You can we're smart around how to hide a lot of these utilities. On the ADU, it's kind of really excellent to have a single place that you go where if anything goes wrong in the house or anything needs maintenance, all of those utilities and mechanicals are in one spot. And that's the idea of that mechanical shed. Jason writes, are you seeing that certain costs like the well can vary a lot with different locations? Well, not so much. Wells are priced by depth of drilling, and so yeah, maybe if you're really high altitude, but that's not really where a big part of the variation is. It's a really safe bet to say that your well costs are going to be around $10,000 to $12,000 for almost anywhere in this part of Sullivan County. Septic costs can vary a bit, certainly based on size of the septic system, but also the type. And so, does the ground require you to build up a mound? Do you have issues with kind of rock ledge and the inability to go down with your septic system? And so, sometimes trickier lots require more kind of exotic or creative septic solutions. All of the lots that we present, from what we know of them, we believe that they should work with traditional septic systems. And so we feel pretty good about our estimates for them. James writes, do you do a la carte services or do you only do beginning to end? We do. And so the this is we're kind of talking about development opportunities where we're imagining how to take a property all the way through, but HUTS as a business can meet you in wherever you are on your project. So lots of folks come to us with land already in place, or they have land that's improved already in place, and they're really looking for design and documentation. Maybe they already have a contractor and they don't want us to help with contractor sourcing or any of the sort of owner's representation during construction. They really want sort of just a design exercise. Some people are working with us right now just to identify land parcels with no intent yet on what they're going to do with it, but they have an idea for an area, a use, a kind of future vision, and they want to have a parcel to start to move out of kind of pure imagination phase and start to make their dream a little bit more physical. And so we do offer a la carte pieces, but within development opportunities, it's about pursuing this project as we've laid it out. Jonathan writes, I caught the tail end of your answer about the septic and well. Did you suggest how these might be installed adjacent to the cabin with a driveway to bring in heavy equipment to build these? That can happen. I think that for us, we're looking to create as much space between the utilities and the cabin as possible, mostly so that the cabin can feel as sort of isolated as possible and doesn't feel like it has a big driveway and a bunch of kind of systems coming up to it. That is a different siting approach, but we are imagining how can we get as close as possible to this pond shorefront, and really make the place feel sort of as natural in its setting as we possibly can. Jonathan writes, is there a significant cost difference between stem wall foundation, concrete piers, or helical piles? If so, can you give some quick pros and cons? We have in our ADU plans and construction documents, we account for various foundation details based on requirement. And so obviously with ADUs, small spaces, we don't have a full foundation, a full basement idea, though for large houses we do. I would say different locations sort of call for different solutions. To me, one of the big benefits of helical piles is how little distress they put on the landscape. They are, if anyone's ever seen them, they're basically, imagine giant screws that kind of screw 6, 8, 10 feet into the ground, depending on area. And you're able to install them with very little disturbance to surrounding trees. You don't need to bring in a concrete truck. And so it allows you to do things like this, kind of get into hard to access areas where you're looking for some level of isolation, just using a skid steer, not having to use a giant concrete truck. To me, that's one of the big benefits of helical piles. The concrete piers are a little bit in that same category where it's sort of low touch, but you're going to have to bring in some concrete equipment, whether you mix it yourself or other. But I would say both for stem wall and concrete piers, one of the benefits is getting to a flat area on a more sloped location. And so I think when you want to build something where there's a little bit more topography there, both a stem wall approach and concrete piers is probably going to be a better bet. Cost difference wise, a little bit negligible at this scale, where stem wall is probably going to be the most expensive, but in both cases you'll probably have the same amount of labor cost. And so I think at the 8 scale of an ADU, I think the difference is really about what's most appropriate for the landscape. When you get into larger houses with 1,600, 1,800, 2,000 square feet of kind of foundation area, then we start looking at total concrete costs and material costs as part of our decision making. Forrest writes, HUT seems to be working on expanding markets beyond New York. Has the design studio considered approaching a similar concept of development in less rural areas, high density, Midwest urban, coastal? Are there too many challenges? And is this against the HUT's philosophy? No. I think that's a larger conversation for maybe another time for us, but ultimately, HUTS is a home brand, and we're really interested in how to bring a better process of delivery to homes that are more appropriately sized, more accessibly priced, and rethinking some of the delivery method. And one of the hardest places to deliver, and one of the reasons we're doing it in more rural areas first, is in rural locations. But we do see a future where we're a really excellent housing solution, both for individual clients and maybe at sort of the organizational level for municipalities and more and higher density applications. James says, great business model you guys have. Thank you. Sarah says, how can we start a conversation with you about identifying the ideal piece of land for what we're looking for? Sarah and anyone here, please feel free to write me directly at wayne@huts.com. And I'm looking forward to talking about what you have in mind, Sarah. If it's not this development opportunity, then another, and we can go from there. So for anyone out there who's interested in this opportunity, please, right after this, we'll send out an email that'll give you our contact and how to get in touch to look at Pucky Huddle. If you're looking to do something like Pucky Huddle somewhere else or a different type of project with HUTS, there'll also be information on how to start that process with us as well. Please keep yourself up to date with the development opportunities section on our site. Again, head to huts.com, go down to the footer, check out developments. We add one new one each week, where we think all the way through on who do we think it's for, what's the pricing, how do we imagine the economics work, what would the sequence be on design and construction, and they're all projects that we would have a lot of fun working on with you for anyone who's interested. Again, if you want to do something different, get in touch through our Get Started page, or like I said, we'll provide information on the response email to this. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon. Thanks for letting me walk through this. And hopefully we can work on Pucky Huddle with somebody who's out there today.